The British had to fight 3 wars with the French to establish their supremacy, which, in history, are called the Carnatic Wars. Since the 15th century, when Europeans first arrived in India, the fight for supremacy between rival factions became a part of Indian history. But the Anglo-French struggles should get special mention, as their role in shaping the course of modern India is far more important than that of any other contemporary struggles. By the middle of the 18th century, the Portuguese lost their hold in India, and the Dutch mostly concentrated their efforts in Southeast Asia. It was left for the English and the French to contest among themselves for the control of trade and political power in India. The contest between the two began in the Karnataka region, and it resulted in 3 Carnatic Wars. In this contest, finally, the English emerged victorious. Let us now discuss the Carnatic Wars and their impact on Indian history. The Carnatic is a region in South India, lying between the Eastern Ghats and the Coromandel coast. This region constitutes present-day Tamil Nadu, eastern Karnataka, northeastern Kerala and southern Andhra Pradesh. Do remember that these Carnatic Wars took place in this region, but not for this region. Now, what are the background and causes of the First Carnatic War? The actual onset of the struggles arose from Anglo-French commercial and political rivalry in India and political rivalry in Europe. Between 1720 and 1740, the French company's trade increased 10 times in value until it was nearly half that of the old established English East India Company. So, the English did not like this. Now, what was happening in Europe? The Austrian ruler, Charles VI, died in 1740 and was succeeded by his daughter, Maria Theresa. France did not support her succession and joined hands with German-speaking territories of Austria, such as Bavaria, Saxony, and Spain. Frederick II, who was the ruler of Prussia, taking advantage of the emerging political situation, invaded and annexed Silesia with the support of France. In this war of the Austrian succession, the British were allied with Austria. So, the wars fought between Britain and France in Europe also led to clashes between these two countries over their colonial possessions in North America and India. When the war broke out, Dupleix, the new governor of Pondicherry, appealed to Morse, who was the governor of Madras, to remain neutral. But a British squadron under Commodore Barnett captured some of the French vessels with Indian goods and precipitated the situation. Dupleix, shocked by this incident, appealed to Anvaruddin, the Nawab of Carnatic, to help him to avoid war with the English. Peace prevailed for some time. Meanwhile, Dupleix contacted La Bourdonnais, the French governor of the Isle of France, who appeared in the Indian waters with 8 warships. Pétain, who led the English squadron with his 4 ships, intercepted the French squadron on 6 July 1746. But the British suffered reverses and retreated to Calcutta. The French squadron succeeded in capturing the undefended Madras on 15 September 1746. Governor Morse was asked to surrender, but the Madras governor turned to Anvaruddin for help. Dupleix was clever in convincing the Nawab that he was securing Madras from the British to be handed over to the Nawab. On 21 September 1746, the English were forced to part with Madras. But when the Nawab of Carnatic asked the French to hand over Madras to him as promised, the French avoided him. Thereupon, the Nawab sent a force of 10,000 men, under the command of his son Mahfuz Khan, to fight against the French. Nawab's forces blockaded Fort St. George, but the French forces pushed the Nawab's forces to Santhome and were able to inflict a severe attack on the Nawab's forces, resulting in heavy losses. On the other hand, the English, with the help of the Nawab of Arcot, were trying to regain the places lost. But Dupleix again played a diplomatic game by promising that he would hoist the flag of the Nawab in Fort St. George. The Nawab agreed to withdraw his proposed help to the British. By this time, in 1748, France and the English had signed the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle. Under this treaty, the British and the French ceased their hostilities in India. It was agreed that the French would hand over Madras to the British in return for Louisbourg in North America. In Europe, peace prevailed between the British and the French. But the two colonial powers could not live in peace in India. They played one native ruler against the other. Dupleix wanted to enhance French influence by involving in the wars of succession in both Hyderabad and Arcot. In 1748, after the death of the Nizamul-Mulk, the Nizam of Hyderabad, a civil war for succession broke out in the south between Nasir Jung and Muzaffar Jung. The Nizamul-Mulk died in 1748, nominating his grandson, Muzaffar Jung, as his heir. However, Nasir Jung was able to take possession of Hyderabad, while Muzaffar Jung travelled in search of help. Further south, there were also two candidates for the Nawabship of the Carnatic region. Anwaruddin had only been appointed as the Nawab of the Carnatic in 1743 by Nizamul Mulk. So, the death of Nizam in 1948 left the Nawab vulnerable. Chanda Sahib was the son-in-law of a previous Nawab of the Carnatic, Dost Ali, 1732 to 1939. He had been an effective ally to the French and was captured and imprisoned by Marathas after his defeat in a war. While traveling in search of help, Muzaffar Jung met the imprisoned Chanda Sahib. The French agreed to provide them with 2,000 sepoys and 400 European soldiers. Muzaffar Jung and Chanda Sahib then advanced towards Arcot, the capital of the Carnatic. Anwaruddin met them at Ambur, 3rd August 1748, southwest of Arcot, where he was defeated and killed. On being defeated, Muhammad Ali, the son of Anwaruddin, escaped to Tiruchirappalli. Then, Muzaffar Jung and Chanda Sahib entered Arcot, and Chanda Sahib became the de facto Nawab of the Carnatic. By the end of March 1751, the army of Muzaffar Jung and Chanda Sahib, with French support, marched on to the Deccan and fought and killed Nasir Jung. Remember that, in the war, Nasir Jung had the support of the British troops. Subsequently, Muzaffar Jung was installed as the Nizam of Hyderabad in December 1750. Dupleix's dream of establishing a French empire appeared good for some time. He received huge money and territories, both from the Nizam and the Nawab of Arcot. Since Muzaffar Jung could not appreciate and officially honor his Afghan allies, like he did the French, this resulted in a conflict and led to the Battle of Lakkireddypalli Pass. On 13 February 1751, Muzaffar Jung died after being hit in the head with a spear by the Nawab of Kurnool. The French promptly placed Salabat Jung, brother of Nasir Jung, as the Nizam. In order to reduce the influence of the British, and also with a view to capturing Muhammad Ali, Chanda Sahib decided to take Tiruchirappalli with the help of the French and the Nizam. On the other hand, to undermine the growing French power in the region, the English decided to support Muhammad Ali. Dupleix was also determined to take over Tiruchirappalli with the help of Chanda Sahib. So, it was Nizam and Chanda Sahib's troops, plus 900 Frenchmen, versus Muhammad Ali's troops, plus 600 Englishmen. In this scenario, Robert Clive's idea changed the course of history. He divided his army into two wings. One wing went to Tiruchirappalli to rescue Muhammad Ali, while the other went to attack Arcot. Following a chain of events in the war, Clive seized Arcot and Chanda Sahib was captured and executed. Subsequently, Muhammad Ali became the undisputed ruler of Carnatic. On the other side of the world, in Europe, Britain and France were not involved in any war, and so neither of them approved the policy of their companies fighting in India. So, the French government recalled Governor Dupleix. The Treaty of Pondicherry was signed in 1755 between the French and the English, in which both countries agreed not to interfere in the quarrels of the Indian princes. The treaty also defined their mutual territorial possessions in India, a situation that was maintained for nearly 2 centuries until Indian independence. As a result of the war, the English replaced the influence of the French in the Carnatic. The French, however, retained their influence in Hyderabad. In the name of protecting the Nizam, the French army was maintained by the money collected from the Nizam. This method of exercising control and maintaining a foreign army in a state, at the cost of the ruler, was later used by the English in subsidiary alliance. Now, if everything was settled, what led to the Third Carnatic War? The rivalry between the French and the English over territory led to a conflict known as the 7 Years' War. The outbreak of the 7 Years' War in Europe renewed the long-running conflict between the French and the British trading companies in India for influence on the subcontinent. With the outbreak of the 7 Years' War, Clive captured Chandranagore, the French settlement in Bengal. With this, the French influence ended in Bengal. The French, under Count de Lally, captured Fort St. George and attacked the English to acquire Madras. But he was defeated by English forces under Sir Eyre Coote in the Battle of Vandivash in 1760. The French lost their Indian possessions, including Pondicherry, Mahe, and Karaikal, to the British. The war ended with the Treaty of Paris in 1763. As per the treaty, Chandanagar and Pondicherry were returned to France, but they were barred from fortifying them or having troops in them. They could only have trading activities. It was a decisive battle between the English and the French in India, in which the English emerged as a victorious foreign power to rule over the Indian subcontinent. The French confined themselves to their settlements, and their political influence completely disappeared. The war paved the way for the rise of the British Empire in India.